The reality is that folks have to believe that your information is out there, right? No ifs, ands, buts. Every time that you have received an email from Target or CarMax or whoever you've dealt with that says, we have a data breach, some information may have been taken, we're taking steps to mitigate. What they're telling you is that first of all, we're covering, our rear end. But the reality is that there may have been a breach. But what's happening around the world is that there is a group of individuals who is taking information from one company, and then they're taking information from another company, and then they're selling all the data to, say, a third party who's collating all that information on building a profile on you as an individual, right? So when your iPhone tells you that, this password has been utilized several times in several accounts that you own, and oh yeah, by the way, this information has now been breached because they know that the company that you was with, that you had a profile with at, campamerica.com, but you open up an account there, you created a user account and a password, but now Camp America has now been compromised, and now they done taken your information. Now you have not changed your password on all your other accounts, but then your information is then breached somewhere else. And so there's a third company that runs a supercomputer that's taking all of your information and they're collating it and then deciding, okay, we're going to stop here now. We're going to try to see if we can breach this person's info, right? Because now we've gotten your birthday from this company, and then we got, part of your social from this company. And that's how, identity theft and all these different things are happening. But the reality is that we are becoming such a connected world that it is very difficult to quote unquote live off the grid. You can, but then that's a different quality of life, right? So who doesn't want to do it? So that's why you as an individual have to be very mindful about what you're putting out there, and then be smart, right? We always tell folks, don't use your debit card as your main use. If you have a credit card, use your credit card instead of your debit card. Why? Because think about it. If you use your debit card everywhere you tap, right? You go and you're using your debit card, what's happening is that number is being entered into the database for that company. Now, not all company securities are the same, right? Some company will only take the 3 digits from your debit card, the last 4 or 5, last 3 or 4 digits, and use it. But then another company has taken your whole credit card number, right? And so now this bad acting company over here who has now hacked this company and has hacked that company, they've now been able to build a profile. Now they have your debit information, which they can now go ahead on and take all your money. But oh, by the way, if you just use your credit card, the laws are set up in such a way that you can recover your money, from fraudulent activity from a credit card faster than you can from your debit card, right? And that's money that comes directly out of your bank account. So we always try to tell folks, if you have access to a credit card, use your credit card instead, right? Because if it gets compromised, it's easy to call them and say, hey, I don't authorize this charge. I didn't authorize this charge. They do a little investigation, and then they're able to credit it back. Normally with your bank card, it takes a longer investigation. Some banks, depending on their policies, it may not be that you ever get that money back, right? And so that's why if you're going to put a digital card out there with your information that's going to access to your money, let it be a credit card and not your debit card, because a bad actor can take your money. You go to the ATM, now you're wiped out. It may take 4 or 5, it may take a week or 2 before you're able to recover your money. How does it, how you gonna pay your bills? Now you don't have access to capital compared to if your credit card gets compromised and it happens. And the thing about it is all companies get hit. Every day there's a briefing that happens to a section of the Pentagon that shows all the companies that are hit from a cybersecurity standpoint every single day.
Really?
Every single day.
That's insane.
Yeah, every day.
And then what they talk about, just how to...
Well, no, I mean, what they're saying is what they do is they get a list of these companies that have been hit, right? There are some governments, local governments, who their information has been compromised. They're hacking into local governments, because now they got a copy of your water bill, and then they got a copy, they're again, companies building profiles on individuals around the world, or they have locked out all of the government computers, for the government agencies, right? That you can't get in, they've now taken control of those systems. And so now you have to pay an individual to try to recover the information. And sometimes, some governments, local governments pay, some individuals don't, but think about the disruption that happens to your operations of business. Well, we'll say, we're going to start all over. And some of it comes from, unfortunately, because the patches, you have a printer that's on the network and the printer was never patched, right? So there was an update. That's why running updates are important. Because why? Because someone has figured out how to get through the system. That's why they always have system updates. And so, but what happened is that the IT guy didn't put the printer on the network to be updated. And so someone who's hacking into the network finds a portal through the printer, to get into the network to now impacts everybody. And that's how it is. So when you're an IT manager and you're running at a company and a system, it's so important, man, that you know what you're doing, because you could leave exposure to that company or that organization in a very big way if you don't realize that, oh man, I forgot that these 3 printers have not been updated in, the last 2 months. And so the patches that they needed are now they're left vulnerable. And so therefore, because there's always somebody trolling on the network,
of course,
to see how they can get into, they're riding the back end of the internet and they're looking for ports to get into other networks. That's all it is. And then they just snooping around. Some people just snooping around. They just want to see if they can do it. Yeah. And some people are like, I am trying to steal information from this company, corporate espionage, all that stuff is real.
So outside of, just using your credit card for purchases, how else could people protect themselves from cybersecurity attacks?
Yeah. So, one of the things that folks really have to be educated on the fact that, these threats are, number one, that they're happening, right? And so you just have to be mindful on how much information that you're putting out there, whether it's through social media, when you talk about, your profile, or again, when you're out here in the economy, in the market, if you're talking about protecting your money, again, the best way is to limit how many credit cards you have and then being able to navigate the process, if you are hit. Another piece is making sure that you have credit identity fraud on your credit report, right? So a lot of individuals don't realize that, they're getting hit, their information is being used, and they don't find out till later on, like, man, my identity was stolen. Well, you didn't have any credit monitoring on your profile. And some of those systems are, they're pretty affordable, right? Where they are actually monitoring your information, like, hey, your profile was run today, your credit was run today. And you were like, hey, I didn't open up a mortgage with SunTrust and, and banking, but a lot of folks don't want to do that level of investment, right? They just don't. They see that $159 a year fee as, oh man, I don't want to pay that, but you just spent, mad money at the club though, or, you just bought 2 bottles of Macallan 12s. And so therefore, which equals how much it would have cost you to just invest in yourself to protect your identity. A lot of folks just don't do it. They don't see the value in it until they get hit. And it's just like having insurance, right? The reality is that most companies cannot protect you from, cyber threats and, cyber attacks. They just can't. And they make sure that that's a part of their fine print. That's a part of the fine print, right? But so a part of what you have to do is for yourself is make sure that you're protecting your identity. Make sure that you're limiting the usage of your cards that's out there in the global space. You got to make sure when you go online, if you're doing any shopping, always look for the little lock, right? Always look for the security lock that's in the browser to let you know that the website that you are doing business with has at least the highest level of encryption, so that as you're typing in your credit card information that is moving across the web, that is encrypted moving across the web, you just don't know how many people purchase things online and never look for the security lock that's in the browser. That lets you know. So where you type in the website and you go through, you get where I want to buy this shirt. Well, okay, you get ready to buy the shirt. You go to checkout. When you go to checkout, look in the browser. Is there a little lock in the browser? A little lock. And if you don't see the lock, that means that company is not using the best encryption possible to protect your information. And so, which means that when you make that purchase, someone from another country has already intercepted that transaction and gotten your information, compared to the fact that there is a lock that the company's using. They're using the highest level of encryption to protect your information that's moving across the web. Little things like that, man, you got to pay attention to, because just think about, you're on Instagram, these ads pop up. Which sometimes I go to a random shop, some of the most dope, little things that pop up. You're like, oh man, I would like to use that. You click on it and you decide you want to get it, but that's a fake website from a bad acting country somewhere. And they're just waiting for you to put in your information. And then when you hit pay now, they pull out whatever money that they can from you. But you didn't realize, like, man, is this even a secure website that I'm going to? Right.
Yeah. So, those are things that people don't think about. And I appreciate you dropping that wisdom.